Cineboys to Cinemen episode 34.
Yep.
34. Hope you're well, wherever you are, whatever you're doing.
Yeah.
This week,
the Expendables.
Expendables. A lot to talk about with this one.
I'll reserve my opinion for it for when we discuss the film, I feel. But it's opened up a bit of a can of worms, I think, in my brain that was festering. Although I feel like you have a bit more of an affinity for these kinds of films. Not that you necessarily enjoy them, but I think your knowledge of them is a bit broader than mine. So I am interested to hear what you think. I can see you've got quite a hefty selection of notes there.
Oh yeah, you know me, mate. Yeah, no, I think it is an area of film that interests me a great deal.
Yeah.
The area, of course, is straight to DVD films, because even though Expendables had a pretty meaty theatrical release and there was a lot of sort of marketing material for it, the film feels like essentially $100 million straight to DVD experience.
Yep.
So basically that's just an opportunity for us to talk about straight to DVD films, what sort of curious phenomena they are.
Yeah.
Also about the career of Sylvester Stallone, as he is the film's star. Not so much in this one, spoiler, but sort of more generally speaking, he's the sort of standard bearer of this franchise, isn't he? So,
I mean, he directed the first one. I mean, yeah, he kickstarted it all effectively. It was his sort of brainchild.
Yeah,
and it's odd that his presence in the new one is pretty minimal. But there we go.
Strange.
Shall we intro?
Shall we?
Shall we? I don't know. Shall we? Yeah, we don't worry. We will.
We are. Please, don't go. Questing the cinematic void. So then, let's kick things off with a little chat about Stallone.
Ooh.
Because, as mentioned previously in the intro, he's the sort of standard bearer of this franchise, essentially a walking cultural phenomena.
Yeah,
really.
One of the few that has had. I mean, one of the few kind of actors whose career has been pretty steady in the sort of that within the action genre.
Yeah, the action or sort of sports drama genres.
Yeah, because you got someone like Bruce Willis who kind of ventured into more dramatic territory.
Yeah.
And then you have someone like Dolph Lundgren who ventured into straight to DVD territory.
Yeah.
Same with like Steven Seagal, but Stallone has always kind of remained afloat.
He has. I mean, his later career, he dabbled more with straight to DVD style stuff.
Yes, yeah.
But I think you're right. I think, alongside Schwarzenegger, easily the sort of biggest and most recognisable action star of all time.
Yeah,
probably.
Yeah, definitely.
I think they're probably on a level. Maybe, I don't know how would you quantify that, but yeah, he's an interesting guy, I think, Stallone. I want to sort of start this discussion by talking about his sort of first movie, Rocky.
Yes,
which he wrote.
Yeah,
won an Oscar for, I believe.
He did. Yeah.
And I think that's something that's interesting about him. Before we start to talk about his beginnings, when we consider him retrospectively as this sort of action star who's obviously been, in lots of good stuff, but a fair amount of shite as well. Shite that in its own way can be entertaining or just plain shite. Yeah. We tend to forget that there's obviously, quite an intelligent, thoughtful, creative individual there, really. Not to sort of heap too much praise on him, but... No,
it's a really interesting story how he got Rocky off the ground as well. Like, it really was rags to riches. It was genuinely from nothing. And it's such a, for Stallone, considering his later career, it's such a sensitive film.
Yeah.
It's very emotional and emotionally grounded. Which I think is interesting because that side of him did disappear, at least from a career perspective, I think.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's not as important for the sort of philosophy of the action film.
Yeah.
Certainly the kind of action films that he became embroiled in.
Yeah.
So you're thinking like late 70s or mostly in the 80s where his career really took off in that regard.
Yeah.
And of course, sensitivity was not a trait that was particularly considered aspirational, certainly within the guise of action cinema. So yeah, I think you're right with that. What's very interesting about Stallone and Rocky, it's interesting that you point out that sort of rags to riches element, because before even deciding to do this episode, I was watching quite a lot of interviews with him, and he was just talking about the sort of writing process of Rocky. And even by his own admission, it's quite clear from the outset, obviously it's clear because it came from his mouth, but he wanted to make a film that sort of countered what he viewed as the cynicism of New Hollywood.
Okay.
To go back to the values that made America great, sort of hard work, a never say die attitude, and a belief that if one has these qualities, the American dream will sort of pluck you from mediocrity.
Okay, right, yeah.
And I think that's what sort of makes him who he is, and also is something that is very much embodied in the Rocky franchise. It's obviously a little bit more, I think, thematically speaking, more powerful in the first film because, like, as you say, he really went from living in his car to like a Hollywood name within one movie. So there's sort of like a meta narrative there, But yeah, I just find that really interesting that he's around this sort of new Hollywood age where directors like Scorsese and all that sort of stuff are making films that are a lot more introspective and critical of America, aspects of American life, from suburban life to its foreign policy, domestic policy, and the impact that has on fringe societies, minorities, etc., etc.
Yeah.
Whereas Rocky is sort of, obviously these are all incredibly important films, by the way.
No.
But like Rocky is more about that sort of like, that sort of unabashed love of the idea of the American dream.
Yeah. Which is was becoming like increasingly rare, and was probably a big breath of fresh air for audiences who, so there's going to be a side to the sort of the general kind of public that it wants to see those kinds of hopeful messages. And I don't mean hopeful because obviously in the first one the idea isn't that he wins, right? That's like not part of it at all. Nonetheless, there must have been a hunger for those kinds of themes because, as you say, the 70s, was it the 70s? Yeah, it was marred is the wrong word because they're great movies, but they were a lot more just negative, really, presenting quite a bleak idea of America.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think obviously after old Hollywood collapsed, so did their sort of stranglehold on the sort of what filmmakers could make films about. So I think it's foolish to say that filmmakers before in the era of classic Hollywood weren't being critical, because they were, but they just had to be clever about how they went about it through the lens of the studio system. Whereas in the 70s, that had all gone. There was a new hunger for a more sort of a cinema that better reflected the time, and it wasn't just a cinema that was bogged down in these what were largely considered old-fashioned, very conservative, traditional values.
Yeah.
And it's interesting that Stallone sort of sees this and thinks, no, I don't want to make a film about that.
Yeah.
But weirdly, and I think it's sort of credit to him, because I fucking the first Rocky's great.
Yeah.
Like it's a film that embodies a lot of those values that I think a lot of sort of like more archetypal classic Hollywood films would have embodied. But it does it in a way that, as you say, there's still a sort of dirt to it, a grit to it that. It doesn't feel like you're sort of being aggressively moralised.
Yeah. I do just love the fact that it's not about winning. I can't remember what age I was, but I was young enough to be swept away by it, I think.
Yeah.
And I've seen it like 3 or 4 times since, and it does hold up like on rewatch as well.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Even some of the sequels are pretty good as well.
I like the third one. Is the third one with Mr. T?
Yeah.
That was pretty entertaining. Rocky 5 didn't really work.
No.
I think that's pretty universally recognised as being shite, and it took, what was it, 15, 20 years before Rocky Balboa came out?
Yeah.
Which I watched on a plane and I really didn't get on with, actually.
Right, okay.
And I haven't seen it since, but I liked Creed a lot. I thought Creed was great.
Creed was good. I think Creed was a great reinvention of those sort of ideas.
Yeah.
With a sort of a fresh lead.
Yeah.
And, I mean, Stallone was great in that. I mean, we talk about modern performances and his slide into straight-to-DVD realm, but, I mean, he was Oscar-nominated in that film. Yeah. And he was great.
It's like, I think Creed is all about being humble. Like, there's a bit at the beginning where he's, the whole thing is that he doesn't want to live up to someone else's legacy. In this case, his dad. It's like he wants to become his own, like, almost start at the bottom and work his way up. And there's still like a slight delusion of grandeur. Like, I remember the bit where he bets his car on him winning a match, and it obviously doesn't win, and that's like a moment of him getting humbled, right? I think Creed's great, and it's a good reinvigoration of that franchise, I thought.
I absolutely agree. Yeah. Obviously, after the original Rocky, things open up considerably for Stallone, and I think the role that would garner as much success, or indeed be as iconic is Rambo.
First Blood.
Yeah. I mean, we talk about his transition into obviously sort of more, straight-laced action films in the 80s, which Rambo did ultimately become.
Yep.
But the original Rambo, I mean, I'm quite embarrassed to admit, but I only watched this the last few years. I don't think it was that long ago I watched it for the first time.
Okay, yeah.
And my expectation of it going in was very much sculpted by the films of his career in the 80s. And what I didn't expect to get was a really sort of powerful and sort of meditative study of the veteran experience.
Yeah.
And not just because I think, like in that period, in that time, Vietnam vets are coming home, and there's obviously a lot of anti-war sentiment, chiefly sort of pushed by younger generations. Not exclusively, but, for the sake of keeping this discussion lean. But what's interesting about Rambo is that he's sort of coming home and he's out in like rural America, traditional values America.
Yep.
And even they reject him.
Yeah.
And it's almost that sort of rejection of trauma.
Yeah.
Like nobody wants to know the trauma that he's endured whilst out in service.
Yeah.
And I think like it really would pair well with like Paul Schrader's sort of stuff around that, like obviously Taxi Driver, but even films like Rolling Thunder that sort of really seek to explore the veteran experience and how isolating it is.
Yeah.
And the sort of wholesale apathy towards that experience is what really drives the film. Obviously, it takes, it becomes more of an action movie as the film progresses. But it really sort of shocked me how powerful all that sort of thematic stuff was.
I think it's for anyone that hasn't seen it but is aware of the franchise, it's expected for you to kind of think, oh, it's like an action franchise about it, like Gunishment, effectively, and you could be forgiven for thinking that the first one is no different, but certainly in the first half it really is. It gets quite hefty and quite deep, and that is almost always forgotten. Like even in the way it's marketed nowadays, with like a lot of like re-releases and stuff, it's packaged in with the inferior sequels, including like the 2008 remake, and then there was another one, wasn't there, recently? Like,
was there?
Yeah, there's been a few.
Oh, yeah. There's one where he's like living in the America, the Midwest, or that might be wrong. Maybe I think it's him taking on the cartel, right?
Yeah,
something like that.
I can't. Yeah, that's it.
Maybe
that's
I don't
like
know.
Super violent. It was rebooted twice, so you have Rambo. Well, you have First Blood, then First Blood Part 2, then Rambo 3, then Rambo again in 2008, and then Rambo Last Blood in 2019. And yeah, that any kind of semblance of nuance is gone, and it's it's like you say, he's venturing into the straight to DVD-ish territory and kind of flogging the dead horse, right?
Yeah.
I think particularly the latest one didn't really make much money either, so I don't. It's a shame, really, because there was some, like you say, there's some great ideas in the first one that get fogged by what the franchise eventually became.
That's a good way of putting it, actually. But I mean, they're his two main things, right? I mean,
yeah,
and it's interesting that when you sort of talk about that idea of his his franchises always seem to get rebooted, or there's always sequels that are very consciously aware of like realigning the timeline, or like harking back to original values or whatever. So there's it's obviously very conscious.
Yeah, I find it really interesting that he's always up for it as well. So you get some actors that have, I think integrity might be the wrong word, because he clearly has a lot of integrity, but he's also he's always up for it. He's like, I'll be in it. I'll be in it again. I don't know if that speaks to his star power, and like maybe he feels a kind of almost burden of responsibility to make to kind of make them marketable as that franchise if he's the face of it. It's it's not like is there a Terminator film without Schwarzenegger? Yeah, like. He didn't want to do. He didn't want to do. Yeah, he didn't want to do that one. He ended up doing it because he got $25 million
Is that the
for
third
it.
one?
That's the third one. Then he wasn't in Salvation.
That's it. Salvation's what I'm thinking of. Yeah, but then they even CGI him in, don't they? That horrible CGI.
Yeah, he looks like the Hulk.
Yeah, he does. Yeah. And I was sort of thinking about that sort of transition, in Stallone's career away from those sort of like more ground level, sort of grittier films that obviously, Rocky is a sports movie, Rambo First Blood is an action movie, but there's sort of more thematic stuff going on in both of those movies that I think speaks more about him as an actor at that point.
Okay, yeah.
So how easy it is that you get swept up by these sort of genres, and they sort of tend to sort of dictate your entire career path.
Yeah.
And I think that's really the case with Stallone. Obviously, he's been in lots of extra stuff. I was thinking about Cobra. Have you seen Cobra?
No, I've not.
Again,
seen Cobra.
I mean, I sort of framed it as if it was different off the beaten track for Stallone, but it's like a sort of really sort of grubby 80s exploitation film. Co-produced by Cannon Films. So you sort of get the idea, and he plays like a sort of a cop that's just not afraid to just kill everyone, basically.
Right. A maverick.
Yeah, it's like it really sort of in classic sort of exploitation style, he fetishizes like violence and the use of the gun particularly. As a sort of an extension of,
genitalia.
You could say, there's like a really weird bit in the film, and I was only sort of made aware of it by it just coming up on my feed on social media, and I was like mindlessly scrolling a few days ago. But it's like a bit when he comes home from another day of just shooting like 6 people, and obviously just he's absolutely fine about it, as you'd expect.
Yeah.
And he comes home and he opens like an egg box, and it's just all of the stuff to clean his pistol. So he starts cleaning his pistol, then he opens a pizza box, and there's a singular slice of pizza. He takes some scissors and just cuts like a corner off. And just eats the corner of the pizza and cleans his gun. It's just those weird sort of thoughtless things. I often wonder if like the director's like, actually, to be fair, the director of Cobra is pretty decent. It's but it's like, and I actually quite like Cobra because I've got quite a soft spot for exploitation films. But I do sort of wonder what the point of those scenes are. It's like like even at home, he's a well-oiled killing machine. He's got no time for pizza, so he just eats it like...
No time for eggs, which is why there's no eggs.
No, he gave up on eggs a long time ago.
Yeah.
Bizarre film. I put just some questions out on the Instagram. I haven't done it in a while. Mostly just because my memory's terrible and I keep forgetting to do it, but... A few people have said, Lee said Rocky or Demolition Man. Yeah,
me and Lee watched Demolition Man together at uni. Stallone and Wesley Snipes.
That's a great movie.
It is good, yeah. It holds up. There's some really fantastic action sequences in it, and some really well thought out, almost balletic chase sequences as well, and punctuated by real explosions, which can't have been cheap and can't have been easy to set up. So from a filmmaking standpoint, I was kind of blown away by that film. I mean, it's pretty shallow, but it doesn't need to be anything else. I mean, the title kind of tells you all, really. I was surprised.
90s, isn't it?
Yeah, 91, I think.
And that's the interesting thing about 90s action films. It's sort of that transition from that sort of 80s excess into the 90s. It's sort of... There's a sort of more there's a sort of seriousness to 90s action films, which I don't think 80s films really have.
I think people started complaining about the action films of the 80s being unrealistic in terms of survivability.
Right, okay.
And I do think there was an attempt to kind of course correct that in certain instances. I mean, the sequels notwithstanding. Like, I'm thinking something like True Lies. Really good action sequences and some like amazing miniature work and stuff like that. And it always feels quite grounded, and you feel like they could have feasibly survived that stunt, for example. That kind of thing. To a degree, anyway. Yeah, to a degree. Still within the realm of action cinema. No, I think you're right. I've considered that. It doesn't break its own rules anyway. No, it establishes a degree of force that the human body can withstand, and it sticks to it. It doesn't betray that idea. That's what I always think about True Lies anyway. I like that. Wrong actor, but whatever. Dale said the newer Rambo. Oh, really? 50 cal scene is golden. I mean, it is. My memory of it's not altogether that great, but you're right. The sort of certainly the newer Rambo films, as in like the 2008 one and the 2019 one, really
sort of hammer home the gratuitous nature of the violence and their marketing, and just in the films in general.
It treats humans a bit like blood bags, but, like limbs falling off. I think that's the scene he's referring to.
I do remember that scene. It just sort of, it is burnt into my mind as just what I just remember thinking. Fucking hell, this is
gritty, and the blood's real as well. I think they got Stallone got a lot of shit for using CG blood in the original Expendables, so he probably maybe even had it written into his contract of using real blood.
Expendables 1's 2010.
Is it? Okay. So are we talking? We're not talking Rambo 2019. We're talking Rambo 2008. Right. Okay. I got mixed up there. Interesting. Maybe he discovered CG blood after Rambo.
Sorry, not.
No. It's fine.
I just don't want our adoring fans to turn on us.
Oh God, no! Not after the shitstorm of the mistakes we've made in the past. Can't walk down the street without getting recognised.
No, I just
things get pelted at me.
Yeah, bags of dog feces just.
It's a bit like the 50 cow scene, actually. It's not blood. It's anyway. Sorry.
No, I mean, I just think there's a real fetishization of it. It's almost like, and I think this is where the franchise and Stallone as a whole starts to go down that straight to DVD approach. And I'm not saying that like action films are sort of ever been particularly famed for having a considerate view of the application of violence, because if they did, it wouldn't work as a genre. The morality of these films is always going to be questionable and shaky, but it really seems to be sort of like indulging that sort of thoughtless violence to this sort of 8th degree. And that's sort of something that's very part of the parcel of like straight to DVD action films. It's kind of what you come to expect from those films. Is like an escape. It's a strange way, like version of escapism, of just like watching people get dismembered by explosions. Yeah.
I mean, I guess there's a sort of it's commendable in the sense that it's difficult to make look realistic. So pulling that off can, if it works on screen, then it's kind of interesting in that way. But also there's a kind of torture porn aspect of it, I think, which is slightly troubling.
I think it is. I think like you're right. I mean, we were talking about this before in the context of The Equalizer, weren't we? 3, in the idea of Washington's character being this hero, and yet the way he goes about dispatching the enemy isn't necessarily with like ease and humanity in mind.
No,
it's not done like quick and easy, is it?
No,
it's done as grotesquely and as gratuitously as possible in a way that suggests that there's an element of enjoyment to what he's doing. And that undercuts those aspects of the character that Foucault wanted to shine a light on, that he's this sort of like decent guy. And I think it's the same with Rambo, because in the first Rambo you sort of feel sorry for him, and the action does get a bit silly towards the end, but again it's still sort of grounded in this sort of vague sense of realism. And obviously the 80s took Rambo away from that. Rambo 2 in Afghanistan, obviously a very clear and overt message about the Reagan sort of administration and its attitude towards communism. So he obviously became a tool for sort of that American cultural superiority thing that so many action films of the 80s did. But after that, he sort of just becomes, I don't know, like it's almost like you say, this sort of, there's no real concern about how the violence is going to make him look as a character. It's almost like it's essential that he does employ those levels of sort of sadism. Without really addressing why. And I think that's why it falls in, it starts to slide into that straight to DVD sort of action film.
Base level enjoyment, look at this man's skills kind of thing. It's meant to be about their skills, and their skills obviously in a lot of cases are like killing people in interesting and increasingly gruesome ways. It's not unlike Saw. It really isn't in terms of how the people getting enjoyment out of that. But I feel like the Saw gets bogged down with with a lot more criticism than these action films get, just because it's not action, it's grotesqueness more overtly, but the content's the same largely.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of any other Stallone films that stick out to me, but we've said most. Stop or My Mum Will Shoot. You ever seen that?
I have seen that.
He ventured into comedy briefly, and I think he kind of was very quick to get away from that genre.
Didn't he take that film purely because the Schwarzenegger basically baited him into doing it?
If that's true, that's hilarious.
I'm quite, because obviously in the 80s, those guys, it was either Team Schwarzenegger, Team Stallone, right?
Yeah.
And they were obviously in competition with one another, and I'm pretty sure they offered it to Schwarzenegger and he kept saying no, and I don't know, I can't quite remember how or why he managed to dupe him into doing it, but I think he did. I'm pretty sure Schwarzenegger got interviewed in one of those like late night American shows. I think it was
like an anecdote
or something. Yeah. They all bleed into one of those kind of fellas, but and he basically said he duped him into it. I think that they're friends now, but I think during that period they were quite,
really?
Because they both occupied a very similar space.
Yeah, and probably were in competition for box office numbers.
But yeah, that film is shit.
Yeah, the ones that I remember looking it up once. I can't remember why. I looked up on Wikipedia, and someone had edited the box office revenue to be 1.3 billion. And it stayed on there for like 3 months. I kept checking back. I was like, it's still there. Yeah. And then they put it was one of the most profitable films of all time and stuff. It was so good.
Yeah, that is a brief foray into comedy for Stallone.
Yeah.
Comedy really isn't his bag.
No, I don't think
Schwarzenegger can sort of do it because I think he has he's not a particularly great actor. I would wager to say that Stallone is probably a better actor than Schwarzenegger.
Got more range, I think.
But Schwarzenegger, I think, knows more what he's got and plays to that.
Yes, yeah.
Whereas I think Stallone,
a bit more ambitious.
Is a bit more ambitious, and he's not quite as sort of aware, I don't think, of what his limitations are.
No, yeah, definitely.
Comedic limitations are pretty obvious, particularly in the Expendables franchise, and especially with Expendables 4. Expendables. We'll go on to that later.
Yeah, nice.
Let's talk about straight-to-DVD films then, because I feel like it's quite a nice opportunity to segue in.
Oh.
So, I was trying to sort of do some research around the idea of straight-to-DVD films, and I don't know, it seems to me, because there wasn't a great deal of, scholarly work on it. And maybe I'm just not looking in the right places, I'm sure there is, but, and by research I mean sort of hastily look at something on my phone for 20 minutes on the bus, but I, from what I could gather and from my own personal sort of view on it, the title obviously implies that the films skip a theatrical release, so that they just think, right, okay, there's no point in putting this film in the cinema because that means the film has to find its own audience.
Yep.
If we go straight to DVD, it will already have its audience because there's already an audience there that have grown to like these kinds of movies, and we can try and sort of recoup whatever amount we spent on this film in that. And
they save distribution costs and marketing costs, which quite often can be as expensive as the film itself.
Yes, that's
so
true.
You're halving your production budget by going straight to video, and it's like Fight Club made most of its money via DVD sales. Something stupid like The Lion King made almost $1 billion at the box office, but then spent the next 20 years making $6 billion more just by home video releases. Partially because Disney charged like 30 quid per Blu-ray, but whatever.
Wankers.
Yeah, pricks.
Yeah. But the power of home media, which is obviously something that the modern landscape is really trying to, it's reeling from not having, isn't it, really?
Yeah.
It's such a huge part of the revenue stream and a significant part of the reason why you don't see many mid-budget films anymore, or studios taking as many risks.
Yeah.
But for a long time that was like the way that you were going to either, it was almost like a second release, but in the case of straight to DVD films, it was their only release, and their opportunity to make money because they'd already found this audience. There was no concern about losing any money in the cinema. It was like, well, the people that are going to watch this are going to be people that know what these films are about, who they're, what they like, and they're going to fucking go for it.
Yeah,
I'd be interested to see how it's changed now, because obviously, as we've said, you know, the digitization of media has had a significant impact on physical media. But if you go on Netflix has a pretty exhaustive list of straight to DVD-esque, or straight to streaming service, I guess would be the sort of newer term, films. So I wonder if that's sort of happening now.
Yeah, no, it is. It's the equivalent, and it's even cheaper because you don't even have to manufacture anything.
No, that's true.
Apart from like a DCP or like just a file. What a question for you, because I am struggling to see how these films can have an audience to the degree where they keep getting made. So I guess like obviously, like based on the sheer number that are produced, they're clearly popular and profitable. So are they partially created to be sneered at or laughed at or genuinely enjoyed? Because like clearly there's a market for them, and I want to know why. Is it almost like they're trying to be bad, right? They're trying to be naff so that people like us can buy them and laugh at them and think how shit is it? Is it ultimately them getting the last laugh because we bought it?
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah.
I don't know. Or maybe, I'm sure the actual answer is a combination of the three, but what do you reckon?
It's strange you sort of asked this question, because I was thinking about this morning. Like, surely this industry can't be propped up by irony alone.
No,
you know, like, and I think whilst it's true that a lot of these films are watched by people like us, to sort of, you know, a little bit of levity, you know, a bit of fun, you know, because there is something about the experience of watching those kinds of films that is far more liberating in terms of the spectatorship element. You know, like, you don't have to sit quietly. It's the kind of experience you can invite your mates round, or go to a cinema screening of a film like that, and people can just chat and laugh, you know, and it's almost like the audience participation, or the levels of audience participation are, you know, it's increased. You know, like if I think about films like The Room, for example.
Exactly.
You know, The Room has become popular because of that. It's not necessarily, obviously it is about the film, but it's not about sort of sitting down and just watching the film. It's about engaging with the film on a different level. Through the collective viewing experience. And I think that is a huge part of the reason why, maybe not a huge part of the reason, but I would wager, you know, a fairly significant part of the reason why these films do so well. But I do think there are just people that also just like them and enjoy them. So like, even if, I mean, because generally speaking, these films are bad, right? They're often shoddily made. They're never really sort of written that well. They're never really performed that well.
They're just mediocre at the very least, aren't they? In almost every aspect of its production, it's like you're coasting.
Yeah, exactly. And I wonder about that, because if it's anything that a lot of like low budget filmmakers have shown us, is that you can make good quality films.
For
quite a small amount of money. So I do wonder if like this sort of deliberate nature of how shoddy they are is part of the charm of them. And it's almost like people are prepared to forgive all that as long as the film just hits those sort of familiar beats. And I think it has a lot to do with familiarity for me, is that, you know, as long as the film's got like a sort of a bankable star, either a star that's fallen from grace, or a film star who's very happy to sort of cultivate the space for the straight to DVD. Think of someone like Scott Adkins.
Oh right, you
know, like obviously he sort of bursts out of it occasionally and appears in things like John Wick, but you know, his bread and butter is straight to DVD action films. And he's good at them. You know, like it's not that he's shit, and he's probably one of the few examples of someone that can actually make half decent ones on occasion.
Avengement,
exactly. I've
seen that.
Or the Boyka trilogy, or whatever they are. or there's a few others. I think he did a couple with Michael Jai White, again, who's someone who's, you know, pretty comfortable in that space. Obviously he's shown with things like Black Dynamite that he can, you know, he can break out, and he was even in The Dark Knight as well.
That's right.
So obviously these people can break out and have these little these bit part roles in the mainstream, but I don't know, like I feel like, sorry, I'm not really answering this question.
No, I think so.
It sort of feels like there's the naffness is almost like something sort of comforting to be enveloped in.
Okay,
and as long as the film delivers on like the violence, as we talked about here in the context of like the later Rambo films, certainly the fetishization of violence, the lack of moral complexity, and a fairly bankable star.
Yeah,
it almost feels as if people are prepared to forgive those things just for that sort of rush of catharsis.
Yeah, okay, yeah. It's like it's not the quality. It's not quality that the viewers are going to be after.
No,
as long as there's going to be a hefty amount of violence and cathartic violence. Yeah, I always think like also I'm approaching this from a slightly more cynical point of view.
Go on.
Film, you know, the Asylum. The company that does like mockbusters.
Okay.
They're all straight. I think they get aired on Sci-Fi and then they're straight to DVD after that.
Yeah.
Do you think there might be something slightly almost like they're a con? So if someone who's not really that bothered about going to the cinema, for example, might be, or at least 10 years ago, might have been perusing HMV and just saw a film with an explosion on its DVD case and be like, and they don't know whether it got released in the cinema or not.
Right, okay.
It's almost getting duped into thinking it was, there's always like a quote from like Nuts magazine, isn't there, on the front?
Yeah, or some equivalent publication.
Yeah. And they kind of buy it on the assumption that it is going to be good quality at least, or, maybe had a bit more money behind it than it actually did. I don't know, I feel like, again, approaching it from a more cynical point of view, it's kind of like the Asylum's business model of getting people to buy their products based on familiarity to a more successful, bigger franchise that did get a theatrical release.
Yeah, I think you're right, certainly with that part. I think, a lot of these sort of studios are very sort of keenly aware of what's popular and will make films that, will just ape it in the worst possible way. And I think you're right that it probably would be something that maybe the sort of casual sort of viewer who's stumbled into HMV might fall for. But I think that also boils down to like people just wanting more of the same as well. Because I was thinking about this in the context of straight to DVD, because there's only really 3 genres I think that are super popular for straight to DVD: action, horror, and animated films.
Okay, yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, there are so many fucking shit animated films that are straight to DVD, often of like quite big properties as well. They just sort of shit them off to some company and then they just make a really crappy version just to sort of like pump a bit more revenue in. Or there'll be like animated films that are just blatant rip-offs in the same way that like sci-fi channel kind of films are.
Transmorphers.
Exactly. So I don't know, like, it is strange. I still feel like even though we're sort of giving some kind of answer towards it, I still don't quite know what it is.
No.
It'd be great to sort of like maybe in a future episode find someone that's really into them. And just have like a really sort of like, not like take the piss, just sitting down like, what is it that you like about it? Because
completely, I'd hate to think people would kind of assuming we're approaching this from like a judgmental point of view, because it's not.
We're about to fucking lay into Expendables 4 for sure, but like there's reasons for that we'll go into, but like I do think there is something quite comforting about straight to DVD films, even for me. Like me and Lee, Lee loves them, and me and Lee have watched fucking loads of them together. And like, it is fucking hilarious watching them, and that in itself is quite nice. And I think if a film achieves that, I don't know, like, because there are films that aspire to that, and it's obvious. So I don't know if there's like a sort of sincerity to it. I don't know. There is something charming about it. I was thinking like one film that will always stay in my mind, because me and Lee often talk about our sort of fascination with classic wrestling when we were kids. And this is something that is huge part of the market. If you think of like WWE films, for example, that's like a huge part of their revenue stream. And I think what they're banking on is obviously they've got these WWE superstars, that's what they call them, and they will put them in movies that are often like crude or pale imitations of other far more successful, interesting films.
Yeah, okay.
But in the act of replacing like a credible actor with a wrestler who 9 times out of 10 cannot act, there's something fucking great about that.
Okay,
I'm thinking of like the Condemned films, which is basically Battle Royale with Stone Cold Steve Austin.
Okay,
Or like other films outside of WWE, but obviously share the same DNA with the same actor. So a film like Tactical Force with Stone Cold Steve Austin, and I think Michael Jai White's in it as well, who again is a sort of straight to DVD mainstay. Fucking talented martial artist and fucking great actor as well.
And they're quite often very good at the action sequences and stunts, and do their own stunts.
Yeah.
To save money and to showcase their abilities.
Yeah.
So
whereas Stone Cold isn't a particularly great actor. But I don't know, there's just something great about watching him sort of waddle around and sort of talk just like how a wrestler would in a ring, but in a film. I don't know, it's strange, but it's interesting that a lot of companies, including WWE, I mean, I don't follow any of that stuff anymore, I promise, but it's sort of it uses the nostalgia for that golden age, if you will, of wrestling, and it uses that talent in a different way for movies.
Yeah, of course.
It's really strange. There's another one with, I think it's a WWE film, I can't remember if it is or not, but I don't know if it might, but it's called Money Plane.
Oh yeah,
and it's got The Edge.
Yeah,
who for one time was
not the Edge from U2.
Right? No, that'd be great.
Yeah.
Edge versus The Edge. That'd be so good. Yeah. But it's like The Edge and Kelsey Grammer. Kelsey Grammer's in it. I mean, I don't know how the fuck they landed Kelsey Grammer.
Yeah.
But then I think he has done quite a few things like that. I mean, now he's back in Fraser.
That's right.
Fraser's back, isn't it?
He's in X-Men 3.
Oh yeah. So he's got a sort of, his name carries weight.
Yeah.
But it's him fighting Edge on a plane, and it is just shit. Like, there's very little charm about that movie. But
oh man.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like I'm rambling, but I just think there is a charm to that, and maybe it is attached to memory, and maybe there's just something in enjoyment about the simplicity of it.
Yeah,
which I think we can all vouch for.
Oh, completely.
It's just a very, very extreme example of that simplicity.
Yeah. I found a list of some straight to DVD films and picked out the worst titles from them.
Fantastic.
I've got a few examples here, so I'll just read them out. The first one I think is the funniest one. Literally, it's called Misfire.
That's as straight to DVD as it gets.
Yeah. Starring Gary Daniels, who's a kickboxing champion, apparently. So,
okay.
Backdraft 2.
I've heard of the Backdraft films, yeah.
Attack Force, which is Steven Seagal. Steven Seagal features quite heavily in a lot of these examples.
How can we not have not talked about him?
I know. Yeah, he's a mainstay.
Yeah.
Sniper 3, starring Academy Award nominated Tom Berenger.
Oh wow!
He's also in Inception. Yeah.
Platoon.
Yeah. Crazy. He's in a film called Sniper 3.
That's an example of like an actor who had like one. Obviously, Tom Berenger's been in lots of films, but he was again someone that slipped into action films and straight into DVD. And it's a lot of that is based on like their most famous roles. So like if you're good at a war movie once, that's it forever. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Oh man, A Good Man, starring Steven Seagal.
Yeah.
Excessive. Yeah. Excessive Force 2, Force on Force.
That's my favourite.
So good.
I love that one. Yeah.
They managed to get the word force in there thrice.
It's a fucking brilliant title.
Mercenary for Justice, starring Steven Seagal again.
Of course, yeah.
And finally, I've got Avengement on here because Avengement is just a hilarious title.
That is great. Yeah, there's some good stuff.
Yeah.
Fuck, how can we talk about Seagal?
Oh,
actually, this sort of segues quite nicely to what I want to talk about regarding a film recommendation.
Okay, go on. Yeah.
But we talked about sort of Stallone, but there are some action stars who, a lot of them came to prominence or rose to prominence in fairly credible films in the sort of late 80s, 90s. So I'm thinking like Seagal, Under Siege, like a fucking good movie.
Yeah.
Like,
Executive
fun,
Decision.
Executive Decision. Yeah, great film title. And I'm also thinking Jean-Claude Van Damme.
Yeah, of course.
You know, like Universal Soldier.
Yeah.
Hard Target. Again, these aren't like fucking masterpieces, but these are films that are big films for their era.
Yeah.
Dolph Lundgren's in Universal Soldier as well.
Mm.
He's another one, you know. Although arguably, I don't think his stay in at the top, as it were, was as long as any of the other guys mentioned. But and then they just sort of slide into straight to DVD.
Yeah.
And I wonder if it's because, like, obviously their skill set and talent set is very limited, and they didn't really do what Schwarzenegger did in the sense that he was very self-aware of what he could and couldn't do.
Right, yeah.
And could play up to it. Obviously his transition to comedies in the 90s, for example, shows that he has an understanding of his limitations, but also knows how to play to his limitations.
Yeah.
Without giving him too much credit for films like Twins, but it's and a lot of these film stars don't necessarily have that. And I think there's, in the case of Jean-Claude Van Damme, who I want to sort of focus on a little bit, obviously a lot of personal troubles got him as well. You know, like he had a pretty bad cocaine addiction.
Yeah.
And I think at one time he was like in talks for a film, and he wanted to be paid as much as Jim Carrey.
Oh,
it was
right.
Like a huge, in the 90s was fucking, 90s Jim Carrey was stratospheric, right?
Yeah.
Which is obviously not going to happen. And it shows the sort of extent of his ego.
Yep.
Coke-addled, probably.
Yeah, and probably didn't help.
And personal troubles, you know, and obviously that would have contributed to his decline as well. And it makes me want to sort of talk about a film, JCVD.
Okay, yeah, I can see it actually.
Yeah, I have it on Blu-ray.
On the shelf, yeah.
I really like JCVD for lots of reasons, but firstly, like, just aesthetically and narratively, at least on the face of it, it is very much a straight-to-DVD movie.
Yeah.
So it's shot very sort of like flat. It's very flat.
Yeah.
The colours are flat. The cinematography is pretty boring. You know, it has the feel of a film that's been made by people that, as you say, are just coasting.
Yes.
It tends to be sort of like the dominant way which people approach straight-to-DVD action films. It is a sort of very self-reflective piece about Jean-Claude Van Damme himself and his career.
Yeah.
So I think obviously it would have involved him a lot in the sort of like writing process and obviously the early stages of the construction of the film, because it's a really sort of bizarrely heartfelt mediation, not only on his career, but the transition of that sort of experience from being like a household name to a straight to DVD action star.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So the conceit of the film, I don't want to sort of spoil it because I really want you to watch it. I'll lend it to you actually.
Oh, nice.
You take it with you.
Cool.
For the drive back to Wales. And maybe you can sort of like set the mood with Hannah by watching it.
Oh yeah, I'll surprise her.
Yeah. Just say, this film's great, you'll love this.
Yeah. Put it in the Frozen 2 box.
yeah. This isn't Frozen. Shut up, it is. Basically, it starts with him, and he's sort of besieged by personal issues and personal troubles. He's running out of money. I think he has to pay like an equivalent of like child support for his kids, and he can't afford it.
Oh,
from like
okay.
A past doomed relationship.
Right, yeah.
And when he goes to the bank to try and draw money out or get a loan or something, it has been a while since I've seen it. The bank gets robbed, and it becomes like a siege sort of situation.
Yeah.
And everyone that's around him, because of this sort of on-screen persona that obviously Jean-Claude Van Damme has cultivated over a long period of time, they just sort of counting their lucky stars. They can't believe if they're ever going to be in a situation like this, they're going to be with Jean-Claude Van Damme, who's going to kick all their asses and save the day. But of course, that's just not conducive to reality.
No, yeah.
So Jean-Claude Van Damme is wrestling with his sort of on-screen persona, the way in which many people with sort of snobbish tastes just reject him immediately. Yeah. The way in which like sort of sweaty action film people sort of whack off over him and think how brilliant he is. And how they, both of these sides of this sort of cultural sort of spectrum, like superimpose their view on him, and how that's sort of, you know, how he is sort of viewed and how he's expected to behave.
Oh man.
And it's so brilliantly done. There's a particular scene where he sat on a chair and he talks about his life and his career, and the chair rises up into the rafters, and it's like a film set. So it's almost like a trip, like meta.
Yeah, okay.
And he talks like really earnestly and really heartfelt about the mistakes he's made in his career and the person he used to be and how he wants to be a better person.
Wow. Okay. Yeah.
I don't know. Like, it's just great. And what I love so much about it is the commitment to that sort of straight to DVD aesthetic.
Okay.
And the commitment to that straight to DVD narrative style. The sort of narrative simplicity. The sort of simplicity that fans of Jean-Claude Van Damme put on him from the basis of just binging on all of his crappy action films.
Yeah.
It's excellent. Really great movie. I mean, I'm always sort of hesitant to sort of recommend it to lots of people because it's still got Jean-Claude Van Damme in it, and it is a bit naff at points, but I really liked it, and I think it's, in the context of this discussion,
that's perfect.
And as a sort of analysis of the journey and the way in which people perceive that journey from sort of start, middle and end, is one of the best.
Man. Yeah, I will definitely give that a watch. Sounds great. Yeah.
Did you ever see The Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent?
Do you know what? I was just thinking about that film.
Yeah.
It sounds very similar in terms of not necessarily a career retrospective, but an analysis on the influence of an actor and an actor's style on the audience and how they respond to that and how they would treat someone like that and how there'd be an expectation as to how they're going to behave in situations. It sounds similar. I haven't seen it, but I've heard pretty mixed things about it.
Yeah, I think JCVD does it better.
Okay,
personally
that's interesting.
speaking.
Yeah,
I think my problem with that film, and the great strength of that film, is Cage and Pascal's romance.
It got taken over by that a little bit.
Yeah, they are brilliant together, but I think it feels a lot more deliberate.
Yeah, okay.
And not quite as committed to these sort of aesthetical choices that JCVD is. Maybe JCVD is just sort of liberated by the fact it was obviously quite a low budget film.
Yeah, maybe, yeah.
But worth a pop.
Nice. I have quick little sort of almost game, very quick. So basically, you got to pick a number between 1 to 5 twice, and it will come up with I've got like a straight to DVD title generator. That's a very basic version of. So yeah, go ahead. What 1 to 5?
4.
Okay, so we've got tactical. Yeah,
good.
And then again
3.
Tactical blast. Yeah, you could have had avenging latency. Metal : Deep Star Rising. Yeah. Nautical inhibitor.
These are all great.
Yeah. You just put 5 words twice, and they got to be kind of vaguely reminiscent. You could take them from other films.
Tactical blast.
Yeah. Anyway, I just thought I'd do that because some of the titles are just bafflingly hilarious, and it speaks to that kind of complacency thing I was talking. They can't even bother to think of like a graceful title.
Yeah.
But then again, like, you have Die Hard and like Point Break. Like, what does that mean? It's the same kind of.
It's just lucky that they're pretty good movies. Well, exactly. Die Hard, excellent movie in the case of Die Hard, and Point Break, pretty good too.
Oh yeah, exactly. Yeah,
pretty lucky in that case.
Yeah.
Tactical blast.
Yeah.
If I ever release an autobiography. That'll be the name.
There we go, Tactical
Not
blast.
that there'd be any reason for me to do so, but it might be worth just writing about my boring life just to have that.
You never know,
Tactical blast.
Yeah.
I love that.
I thought you might enjoy that game.
Yeah, I enjoyed that very much. Right then, so let's do a tactical blast.
Yeah.
And
of words.
Yeah. And talk about Expendables.
Yep.
My expectations going in weren't high.
No.
Because I've always sort of viewed the Expendables franchise as a sort of missed opportunity.
Okay.
Given that we've sort of talked about the sort of history of these action stars and the legacy a lot of these characters have, it always felt like a missed opportunity.
Yeah.
Because it was always so poorly executed. But at least the first two, you could say there's a degree of competence there, and you can sort of see what they're trying to go for. And the third one was really quite crap as well, but the fourth one just takes it to a whole new level.
Yeah.
What are your sort of thoughts?
Yeah, shit. Outro? Yeah, it is pretty bad. it's got two things going for it, I think. Let's get these out of the way quickly. One, the stunt choreography is pretty interesting and quite, like I say, balletic. Yeah. I think they got like Jackie Chan's people back in to do it, so fair play for that. They can't fault that. The cinematography doesn't do the stunts any favours.
No, dreadful.
And two, what it kind of speaks to what we were saying earlier. From a enjoyment perspective, watching it, there were quite a few times where we just looked at each other at the cinema and started laughing.
Yeah,
and kind of like that maybe might not have been intentional. It was usually because of like a bad visual effects shot, but like it has that appeal, I suppose, as to, you know, a collective viewing experience. It might be quite fun to poke holes at it, you know. And that's all I can think of. Like, it was just mediocre, and like no one was operating to the sort of standard that requires the required standard to make a decent action film. Like, nobody was bringing anything interesting or different.
Yeah,
pretty much across the board. Apart from the stunts. Yeah.
I mean, the stunts were good. I mean, I think when you've got people like Iko Uwais, you know, of Raid 2 fame, and Tony Jaa.
Yeah.
You know, and, you know, Statham, you know, like, say what you will about Statham, but I mean, the guy can fucking, you know, he can do martial arts.
He carries this film as well.
Yeah, he does.
Yeah, I mean, not a lot to carry.
No.
But he does. Like, I think he's one of the more positive aspects of this film, actually. His presence didn't annoy me, and it was, I mean, he was effectively the main character, right?
Yeah, he's definitely been sort of pushed front and centre. But I think, going on to sort of the sort of influence of Eastern action stars, I think we've talked about this right when we did our John Wick episode. It's like, what John Wick does really well is that it sort of appropriately acknowledges the influence of Eastern action cinema. Much so, there's a lot of Eastern action cinema stars in the films, and they get like great character moments, and there's respect.
Yeah.
Whereas in these kinds of action films, which is like one of the worst things about a lot of action cinema in general, is that the more talented people. It's even like films like Fast and Furious are really bad for it as well. Like, they get these actors involved who are clearly like the most sort of talented in this sort of field, and they just use them as punching bags for like Western action stars. Or relegate them to sort of absolutely cringeworthy caricatures to sort of try and clumsily placate a global audience.
Okay, yeah.
I think that's definitely the case with like Tony Jaa's character. That character was like, I cannot kill again, because if I do it, I might reawaken the beast within or something.
That's right, yeah.
It's like a sort of like a really naff sort of like thing. Oh, the Asian market will eat this up. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
But yeah, I think you're right. Like, the stunt work is it's the only thing that elevates this film.
There's not enough of it
above what is essentially a straight to DVD fucking shit fest.
Like so many different ways as well. Apart from again, the cast, of the amount of famous people in it, you wouldn't get that cast in that gets relegated to straight to DVD, I don't think, or at least not initially. The plan would at least for it to get theatrical release, but the budget as well. You messaged me the other day, just like, can't believe the budget for that film was $100 million.
It's absolutely unbelievable. I was so surprised, but I mean, a few people said 70 to 80, but the most consistent thing I could find was number I could find was 100 mil. That fucking blows my fucking mind. Because you know your response regarding the creator. I mean,
it cost 20 million more than the creator, which looked, again, like, had its problems, but looked really good. Like, just looked extraordinary, and there was so much love and care and attention put into that film for less money than this.
Yeah.
And granted, the creator didn't have anything to... It wasn't relying on anything that had come previously, but still, for a budget that massive, you gotta give it a bit of traction.
Something's got... There's got to be, like, a standard. Like, we've spoken about this before, about like CG being like almost like a comforting blanket to like wrap audiences up in, because audiences just expect it now. Like, if you're going to put a film through a theatrical release with a budget of that size, I know CGI and the people behind it don't often get the credit they deserve when they do good, because it's just an expectation. But it's like, I'm sorry, but if you've got that much money behind it, you expect a level.
Yeah,
you expect a certain level of quality, and it's just not there.
No.
At points, it's like absolutely sort of immersion breaking. Like, I know that, I didn't sort of go to watch Expendables 4 to be sort of immersed in the universe, but like it literally like pulls you out of whatever is happening.
Yeah, completely.
To such a degree. Like the use of like some of the location shots. It's not just like the action sequences. It's just like even like the first couple of shots when they go into like Gaddafi's sort of former chemical plant, and there's that sort of exterior location, exterior shot, and it's so clearly like a naff green screen.
Yeah. And like they try to hide it with heat haze, but that just makes it look worse because heat haze is actually quite difficult to get right. It's like a gas in itself, and I've tried to do it because you try to do it at work. It's really difficult. There's layers you have to put into it, and I immediately, like, my kind of quality control brain was like, that's not finished. Similar with later on in the film, large parts of the film take place on a big boat, and there's a bit where a helicopter crashes into the sea, and I'm like, there's fizzing, there's like, you haven't rendered that properly. So that goes beyond just the whole, the crunch time things. We've discussed this previously about crunch time and things like that with external VFX companies. That goes beyond that. That's actually a mistake. Everyone, like, going back to what I was saying earlier, everyone is operating with such complacency that clearly, like, it's so easy for these shots to get signed off, and it's a shame. Because at the very least, people are expecting it to be better, and it has been quite widely criticised for its visual effects.
Shame. I mean, there's no defending it on that front, I don't think.
No.
The only thing I can think of is that a huge portion of the money went towards that cast, and even the cast has been criticised because, like, the whole point of Expendables has been, it's about bringing these sort of old action stars together for like a sort of a final hurrah. And in Expendables 3, they tried to inject new blood, and they were fucking mostly shit. And and at least like the second one, again, not a great movie, but like, there's something just inherently, like, if you're an action film fan, there's something inherently rewarding about seeing a scene that has like Sylvester Stallone, Arnold Schwarzenegger, Chuck Norris, Jean-Claude Van Damme, Dolph Lundgren, all these people, Bruce Willis, like all these people that have like been sort of tentpole figures for the genre for such a long time, and are a reason why for so much of the sort of nostalgia around action cinema. There's something in that, irrespective of the quality of the movie. But like here, it's like there's not many big old action stars in this.
No.
Like, it goes back to what you're saying about Rambo, or the sort of last Rambo film performing so badly. It's like that kind of nostalgia maybe just isn't sort of chiming with people anymore. People want nostalgia 100%, but there is obviously like certain genres where it just isn't working as well anymore. And maybe that's why they only had, I mean, obviously Stallone, again, he's not in it very long. It's almost like he's like, fuck this. Even in his eyes, he's like, no, I'm alright. But like Lundgren, obviously, I'm trying to think of like other
50 Cent,
but I mean, he's not
known
star.
for being an action star, is he? No,
I mean, he's not the worst thing about the film by a mile. He's not a particularly bad screen presence either, but it's like,
he doesn't get a lot to do though. Neither does Dolph Lundgren. His whole arc is kind of weird. Like
it's like embracing alcoholism.
Yeah, exactly. There's a bit where he's like, fuck it, and falls off the wagon.
And that makes him a better killing machine.
You're like, that's a terrible idea. Like, what are you doing? Don't write him like that. That's like, no, that's not funny.
It's strange, isn't it? And then, again, it goes back to that sort of like view of morals. Like, it's not just about like, the way in which it always makes me laugh, like in films particularly like this, they try and sort of add pathos to the characters by sort of trying to consider what it is they do. Like Sylvester Stallone's always banging on about the way of life and how it's like, you can't have friends or family because it is the life you choose to lead. And it's almost like trying to be sort of introspective about like mercenary work and being basically a borderline genocidal maniac. But obviously you can't walk that tightrope. You've got to commit. Like you can't do that. Like it's just not. It's not going to work. Like it didn't work for Equalizer 3, which is a far fucking better movie than this. Like it's not going to work for you either. There's also like a sort of really, I mean, the other films are sort of guilty of this, but there's something so fucking pervy about it.
Oh my god!
There's like a veneer of just like, it just gives the film the scent of like just
a lecherous bloke at the back of a pub. Sort of
always
idea, you know
wearing
what I mean?
leather coats.
Yeah.
Like Megan Fox is in it, and it's like obviously for a long time she was a massive sex symbol.
Yeah.
That was obviously a part of her, you know, irrespective of her talent, which obviously she's not a bad actress.
No,
you know?
she's all right.
You know, but you think of your films like Transformers. Do you remember that scene with her checking the car and
Yeah, it just spins around her, doesn't it? And goes like from her feet right up to her head and shows like everything in between.
yeah. So she's had obviously a career of just being mostly sexualized.
Yeah.
And here it's no different. Like she, even though she's like one of the gang and at one point the leader, which feels like their naff attempt to sort of like bring the franchise to like a more modern sensibilities.
Yeah.
But like it's so like her role in the film is again really just to be something for
to be leered at. There's a bit where there's like a kind of pointless sex scene with her and Jason Statham, and like her lying on the bed afterwards, and they're chatting, and it just kind of just trains on that shot for far too long. There's a bit at the beginning where, and this is a really weird moment. This really took me out of it because I remember, well, like she's having an argument, isn't she, with Jason Statham, and she's being like a stereotypical nagging partner.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, so that's her character in this then. But then she becomes one of the mercenaries immediately afterwards. And it's like, for a start, it's not a good way to kind of introduce your female characters by them being like, oh, I don't like what you do, like you're doing everything. She's like properly bellowing at him, which I thought maybe, Jason, maybe this isn't your cue to go to a strip club.
I
don't know. Maybe you should sort this out.
It's a masturbatory fantasy, isn't it? Oh, sack off the lady when she's having a go at you. Go to a strip club and get in a fight. It's like,
bad messages.
That's sort of the same sort of shallowness as the sort of bloxploitation films, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Like it's sort of like encouraging the worst and most fanciful impulses of a hyper masculinity, as some kind of fantasy, some sort of fantasist, sort of not a nightmare. But you know, these sort of films, I think there's a bloxploitation element to straight to DVD action films I'd not actually considered.
That's true, actually. A lot more Americanized. I think bloxploitation tends to stay within the realms of the United. Chadsploitation. No, you're totally right, actually. Bad use of Megan Fox. I think that they could have done that much differently. It didn't sit right with me. It wasn't enjoyable to watch either. It's like there's eye rolling involved in that.
That's the thing, is straight to DVD action films can get away with that shit because nobody watches them apart from people that are sat there going, go on, shagger, go on, stick a knife in this guy's head, even though whatever, you know, like no one cares.
No.
And I think that's sort of the issue. Like, you know, when a film gets a theatrical release and there's obviously quite a lot of financial wallet behind it, like it does sort of create a certain sort of expectation in that department, I think.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, just that it doesn't mean you have to portray the genre tropes.
No,
you can still use those ideas, but just do it with a bit of like thought. Because it can be done. Like I think Die Hard 4 is a really good film. Have you seen Die Hard 4?
Yeah.
It's an example of that kind of straight to DVD-esque action idea, but done really well and done to a standard. I think it's called Die Hard 4.0, isn't it? Or in America,
Die Harder.
Live Free or Die Hard.
No, what's Die Harder?
Die Hard 2, Die Harder. I always thought like
it's embarrassing.
I really want when they bring out USB 4.0 in America, I really want it to be called Live Free or USB. As a sort of weird reference to Die Hard 4. They're not going to do it.
No.
Well, maybe they will, and maybe I'll sue them. For
for
stealing my idea.
Upgrade the equipment.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I thought that the general set piece of it was kind of really badly thought out as well. Like so much of it took place on the boat.
Yeah,
and even the boat wasn't a real boat. That was a green screen, and that was obviously a green screen. So, and again, 100 million, like, do some globetrotting. Fast and Furious, you know, for all of its flaws, manages to do a lot of globetrotting.
Yeah.
And, you kind of come to expect there to be a bit of a location change.
Yeah.
That it never quite manages.
Yeah, like there's so many scenes of them just walking around was clearly the same sets over and over again.
Slightly retooled, yeah.
Yeah.
Moved a front half of a shipping container over there.
yeah. Which is just so strange. Like,
I don't know.
Yeah. And it's like, oh, well, the whole plan is that we're going to drive this aircraft carrier, well, this boat that we've crudely transformed into an American aircraft carrier into a Russian base or something with a nuke on it and blow it up, and it will start World War III.
Yeah.
And then the main baddie, codename Ocelot, who's someone that's like this, omnipresent yet unknowable enemy that no one can identify, can profit from this war because apparently he's got lots of weapons he can sell.
Yeah.
Very well trodden ground, and I think you could criticize that to high heaven, but I think in the spirit of straight to DVD action films, that's always going to be the case. It's always going to be a derivative narrative.
Yeah.
Action films particularly will be, very literal representations of the sort of the big sort of ideological battles of the era.
Yeah.
And I think obviously the resurrection of the Russia-America thing is
prompted that.
Yeah, it's prompted that and it's brought it back. But I do think that, like as you say, the bigger problems with the movie are more to do with the fact that it's leaning on tropes for a sort of style of films that usually are only watched by the kind of people that really don't care and almost pride themselves on not caring about those things. It gives the film a sort of a veneer of like a sort of teenagery attitude to things. Like every teenager goes through that phase where they like discover they can push boundaries, so they say the worst things and feel clever for saying it. And that's what this film sort of feels like in the way the camera leers at like the very sort of select group of female characters, or the way the dialogue is always sort of like very disregarding of anything a woman says, or it feels like that. And obviously maybe in the eyes of the writer it's like they're a big fuck you to like woke culture or something, but in a way that it just ends up coming across like a sort of a teenager pushing boundaries, and there's sort of thoughtlessness underneath why they're, you know what I mean, like they're just saying things in a way and they think they're being clever. There's that sort of thought process of thinking you're being clever or smart, or
but it's just slightly insulting and pointless, and but it's just young.
Smells like the knuckles of a fluffer.
It's naivety, which is what this script feels like. It's very naive and not really focused on trying to say anything ultimately,
which again isn't necessarily something you expect. Like action films, I don't go to fucking watch an action film to get like an impactful message about something. Like I enjoy the cathartic experience of action cinema, and I've always adored action cinema, but here it's particularly just it's so noticeable on the basis of how shit everything else is that it really stands out. I don't know.
I also think that the title, The Expendables, do any of them even die? I don't think they do. I think they all survive, don't they?
Yeah. Randy Couture gets stabbed, doesn't he?
Yes.
But obviously he's not dead because he's when they drink at the bar. And obviously when Stallone dies, spoilers, he dies. And he obviously was going to come back. There was no way Sylvester Stallone's going to allow himself to die in a movie.
No, definitely not.
Particularly a film that he has so much sort of sway in.
They're not expendable then. And that was, I guess a stupid gripe, but they're not. They I don't know. Like, they're not the sort of crew of the Nostromo, are they?
No, that's true.
Dolph Lundgren's drinking milk at the end, so there's a kind of visual hint that he's back on the wagon.
Oh yeah.
That again, I know I've talked about this already, but that's teenagery.
There's that bizarre segue scene as well where because Statham gets in sort of very spurious circumstances that make no sense in the context of the world that these sort of gomps have created. Stallone gets sacked from the team because he chooses to try and save Stallone over achieving the mission goals, which are taking the detonators from Iko Uwais' character, who's the main villain.
He disobeys a direct order, doesn't he? Yeah.
So by the logic of that, he is expelled from the team, And there's such a total lack of camaraderie in this film that none of them seem to care.
Yeah.
Despite the fact that being one of the central themes of the other films. I mean, again, it's not done that well because, like, 75% of the people in that team can't act that well. So it's like, it's like people pretending they like each other in the workplace, basically. But at least it's there. Whereas here, there's none of that.
Yeah.
And he ends up working as a security guy for an influencer.
Oh, God, yeah. I forgot about that moment.
Probably my least favourite scene of the year. I think if there's going to be, like, if we're going to be talking about, because I think we're going to do an end-of-year retrospective, aren't we?
Yes, yeah.
That'll be one of the scenes I'll probably mention again, because it's just like this sort of, I don't know, like they're thinking like they're going to be like critical about the state of contemporary society by having this sort of like vapid influencer, which obviously does exist to some extent, but it's like, again, through the lens of that teenage simplicity.
Yeah.
That it's like,
drop this in.
Yeah, take that, Gen Z. Do you know what I mean? It's like, we're going to go then stare at Megan Fox's nipples for a bit. Do you know what I mean? It's like, okay.
It's bizarre. I forgot about that scene. Fuck, that was so shit. And there's that like kind of weird POV bit of the phone, and like all the likes are coming out of. That's like a really common trope. Yeah. There's also another bit in that which speaks to the film's laziness. I think the influencers' likes are meant to be going up.
Yeah. I remember you pointed this out as we were watching the film.
But there's a decimal point on the likes, so the likes are going up, but it's not. He's getting like 15.1, then 0.2, 0.3, 0.4, and I fucking know for a fact that in After Effects there's a plugin which is like a count up timer, but it is defaults to having a decimal point. I just know that someone couldn't be asked to change it. There's like an expression to change it, and it's a bit complicated, and they're just, it doesn't matter.
Fuck it,
yeah.
Stallone's not here.
No, yeah. They'll pass this.
It is interesting, isn't it? Because we talk about this idea of straight-to-DVD action films often like very literally aping elements of films, or, the sort of dominant or most popular genre of that period of time to sort of maximise success. But there's also like a very sort of like naff way in which they try and sort of navigate with contemporary issues that other films are doing as well.
Yeah.
Like they're trying to stay current or something. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
that is a horrible scene. So fucking shit. And it just offers nothing for the rest of the movie.
Yeah.
Really strange.
I gave like a kind of free AI kind of chatbot like a very basic prompt, which was Expendables 5 plot.
Okay.
So I'm going to just read it out.
Please do, yeah.
It wouldn't surprise me if
this could change my whole opinion on AI.
Alright, so this is what it came up with. The highly anticipated 5th installment of the Expendables franchise is set to be released soon. The movie will bring together Hollywood action icons Sylvester Stallone and Jason Statham as they seek to take down a new and dangerous threat.
Ooh.
The movie promises to deliver plenty of explosive action, with plenty of ships being blown up in the process. Audiences can also expect to see some of the biggest names in action cinema, with the likes of Arnold Schwarzenegger and Dolph Lundgren also appearing in the movie. With the movie set to be released soon, fans of the franchise are eagerly waiting for more explosive action, and the team of Expendables won't disappoint. So I think I told it to give me a kind of advertising line for it.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, there we go. It wouldn't surprise me if they do make another one. I don't think they will, because of it hasn't made much money. This
we call it Tactical Blast.
Yeah, that'd be much better.
Expendables 5 Tactical Blast.
Yeah. I did also ask it to write me a poem about Expendables 4. This is what it came up with. The action is explosive, daring and deep, but he has promises to keep. Tormented with nightmares, he never sleeps. Revenge is a promise Stallone should keep.
Oh, wow!
Thank you, AI chatbot.
Thank you, AI. Well, I'm, I don't know what those people in the SAG-AFTRA strikes are worried about.
Yeah, I mean,
this is it now. Cultural evolution.
Yeah, I mean, I had to sort of fight back tears when I read that the first time. It's really,
hand over the keys.
Really special, yeah.
Hollywood, give it to AI.
Yeah. I don't know why I did that, to be honest. I was just like, I need a way of making the chat about Expendables 4 slightly more enriching and interesting.
Yeah. No, I do wonder. Like, obviously, the next film's pretty obvious what the next film's going to be, right? That means we're going to be talking about Scorsese and everything.
Yes, yeah.
And it's strange that the predecessor to that discussion as I was just talking about this film. It's interesting to know, going back to what you said quite near the beginning of the episode, where you were asking questions about reasons as to why this sort of bizarre little sort of cluster of films are so popular.
Yeah.
No one else was laughing in the cinema with us.
No, they weren't.
I mean, there was only about 7 or 8 other men in there.
Yeah.
But none of them were laughing when we were laughing.
No, they weren't actually. We were maybe
we were those annoying snob, sort of shit-eating little snobs that sit and go,
yeah, this is awful, look at this.
Yeah. Maybe, in their eyes, we were the twats.
Yeah, they just wanted to have a nice
Wednesday
evening.
Yeah, they just want to watch.
Tuesday evening, yeah.
Yeah, it was a Tuesday evening, yeah.
There was a walkout though. Did you see?
Was there?
Two people left and never came back. So
okay.
I don't know what they were expecting. Maybe it was the VFX that did it. Maybe they were like, "Oh, but that fire over there is a different colour to the real fire in the foreground. I'm out." Come on, love. Yeah, I agree. That fire wasn't very good.
If you were there and listening, please contact us.
Yeah, get in touch.
Let us know what it was that pushed you over the edge.
Yeah.
Yeah, shit.
Not
shit
good.
film.
Don't watch it.
No,
give it a miss. It genuinely isn't worth your time. I don't think.
No. Unless you're of the persuasion of straight to DVD action films, or you have an enthusiasm for action cinema that can help you stomach even the worst examples. I really don't see, and that's probably part of the reason why it's sort of fallen apart so quickly in the box office. It's set to lose quite a lot of money.
Yeah, it is. Yeah,
and I think it boils down to that sort of idea we were saying before. Like the attitude for that kind of movie just isn't there anymore.
No, and it's been a really long time since the third one. I think a lot of people forgot this franchise existed.
Yeah.
It's been like 7-8 years. So odd. No.
Yeah, odd.
Bad movie.
Bad movie.
Bad film. No.
Bad movie. Right. Outro?
Yeah.
Questing the cinematic void.
There we have it.
Then.
There we have it then, yeah. I've sort of enjoyed that conversation more than I was expecting to.
Yeah, it was good.
It's funny, we really mind action cinema a lot in Cinema Boys for Cinema because we've talked about many different facets of it, from like political ideology in the canon film podcast to like the East and Western action film comparison in John Wick.
Yeah.
Now to
bargain bin
action films.
Yeah.
I wonder if it's so strange to me that phenomena is sort of is dead. Like I remember just going into like Blockbuster and just looking.
Yeah.
And you'd always have like a sort of metal mesh bin.
Yeah.
And it'd just be full of all those titles. And I used to think, fuck, even like really young, I was already aware of like the idea that these films were shit before I'd even really watched many of them. And I just remember thinking like, who makes these? And who watches them? You know?
No.
And yet that bin is always full.
Yeah.
It's almost the same sort of logic between like Danielle Steele books in like charity shops. You know what I mean? It's like, or like Rags to Richie by Shane Ritchie. You know what I mean? Like, he wrote it.
I know.
People keep reading it because it's obviously in circulation.
Yeah, no. I mean, it's been. It was published just as the DVDs were made, and someone got hired to make the case, and like they bought the barcode, and like there's probably an all right transfer process going on.
This podcast is sponsored by Rags to Richie.
I used to we go on holiday to like the kind of coastal Wales every year, and there's a shop in a little town called Abereron, which basically is like it's now called the £1.20 plus shop.
Right.
Yeah, because they realised that they weren't making any money, I guess.
Inflation.
So everything
20p on it.
All it means now is everything is a minimum of £1.20.
Right. Okay.
But there used to be a section down in the basement next to like all the fishing equipment. And you know what those shops are like? They're like naff.
Yeah.
Like bike clocks that
just
will break after a week. That kind of stuff. And there was always bargain bin action films next to the fishing DVDs.
Yeah.
And it's gone. Like a couple of years ago, I was like, I think it was raining, but I was like, let's go to Abereron and go. And they weren't there. I was so gutted.
God, even those kinds of shops are like turning tail.
Yeah, they knew.
Cowards.
Yeah, absolutely.
You're listening.
Cowards.
You're fucking cowards.
Bring it back.
Yeah. Please. for Ben's sake, if
Please.
anything.
Yeah, no.
Yeah, I remember Dig and Delve in Falmouth was sort of similar vibe. Is that
Yeah.
sort of similar?
Yeah, very much so.
Yeah, so like by
bric-a-brac,
the
you know.
dildos
Yeah.
was a pretty exhaustive.
A lot of dildos in that shop.
Yeah, dildos on one shelf, and the shelf below was just loads of DVDs. A lot of good films as well, but
Yeah.
a pretty exhaustive roster of shit action films. I love that.
Yeah.
I love that about physical media. I don't want to get too much into it because this is supposed to be an outro, and you probably got better things to do. Listen to me going, oh, physical media, but like, that's the beauty of it right there. That's the beauty.
Yeah.
That is
Completely.
something that no amount of digitizing can do.
No, absolutely not. There's something special. Never can be replicated.
No.
I don't think.
But anyway,
Yeah.
next week. Well, not quite next week. We're going to be taking a week hiatus. For any listeners that are Greek, I don't think
You'll
there are
be
any.
there.
I'll be there. I'll be in Greece. I'll be in Kefalonia. So if you want to meet one half of your favourite podcasting duo, I think after looking at the Spotify figures, which I don't do as much anymore, but I know Greeks. So maybe this is opportunity for some grassroots marketing.
I think so. Yeah.
I might just like walk up on a hill overlooking Kefalonia with a megaphone like 3 a.m. and just scream Cineboys to Cinemen for like 6 hours.
Yeah.
That's what I'm going to do.
Make the local news. People
Exactly.
will Google
And as
it.
I'm getting carted away by police, I'll scream it.
yeah. Oh.
So we're going to be away for a week for that reason. But we are going to be covering Killers of the Flower Moon,
That's right. Yeah.
a film we've both been looking forward to a real great deal.
Yeah.
The trailer looks pretty great.
Yep.
Early buzz is really strong, particularly around DiCaprio.
Yeah.
So yeah, really excited about that. And of course, that'll prompt a discussion about the big man himself. We will refrain from talking about his famous films, I think, because I think we've talked about them enough in previous episodes, and I think the last thing you want to do is hear us talk about them. So we might pick out a couple of his lesser known gems.
Yeah, definitely.
Because he has many. And I'm just really looking forward to that discussion as a whole, and it'd be really nice to sort of wash our hands of this film.
yeah, definitely.
Even though I do there's a big place in my heart for straight to DVD stuff, but I mean, it's stuff like Scorsese is what it's what you watch films for, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, perhaps it's unfair to put them in the same context, actually. But yeah, so that will be not next week, but the week after.
Yes.
I might try watch it in Greece.
Yeah.
What the people I'm going on holiday with think about that.
Let us know what the experience is like.
Yeah.
Watch it with 3.5 hour movie with Greek subtitles.
Yeah, I'll do that.
Yeah,
as long
yeah.
as it's not like dubbed. Obviously, I'm not going to do it. But
No,
I don't want to hear another language.
certainly not.
No, absolutely not. Right. In the meantime, enjoy this episode.
Yes.
And we'll catch you in the next one.
See you then.
Lots of love.
Bye.